Hi friends, time is going by so fast. I actually got up at 3:20 in the morning to get this lesson completed for you. It is fall here in the mountains and it is looking so beautiful, but guess what fall means? It means it's harvest season and we have been crazy busy. One of my sons, he an elk tag, and so we were able to process that meat and we were able to get some peaches and pears taken care of. Also, we have major projects going on and I don't function well once the snow flies, so we're trying to get all of those things done, but I did feel it was important to get a lesson out to you. We're focusing on vowel teams today and we're really focusing on the long A sound and the oi sound. A, that's how you say these. A, and A. Now, A is pretty easy to say. It can be a little bit confusing because the long A sound can come in different forms. The short A sound just shows up in closed syllables, which says a. That's super simple, but the long A sound can be very confusing. We are also saying the oi sound. These right here, OY and OI say oi. Oi. That's how you would say that sound. Now those are the only two ways that you can spell oi. This goes at the end of words and this is in the middle of words. Same with right here with the AY. AY goes at the end of words. AI, they are in the middle of words, and EA is most of the time in the middle of words. The reason why that could be really confusing, when you see an A, so many of our A's turn to schwa. So an A, like when you see an A like that, at the end of a word, you can't spell it with just an A because most A's at the end of a word, they say the schwa sound that does this. So you cannot spell the A sound at the end of a word with just the letter A because most of those turn to schwa when they are at the end. So you can't spell may like that. That's ma. And that is kind of slang for mom or mommy or just a shorter version of ma'am, kind of a shorter version for ma. Anyways, but so you can't spell it. You can't spell say like this. It doesn't work. So you have to, if you want the long A sound, you have to spell it with the AY at the end of a word. Now that's with most of our smaller words. Now things do get a little bit tricky and they change things up a little bit oftentimes, but you need to understand the main basic sound of this vowel team. AY says A, AI says A, and EA sometimes says A. If you see AY at the end, you know you have a base word. AY comes at the end of words, so they are a base word. So you can add suffixes to here. If you see AY in the middle of a word, then you know it is a base word with a suffix added onto it. So when you're adding on a suffix, you do not change the Y to I, because when you see a Y in so many words, when you're adding on a vowel suffix, you're going to change that Y to I and add on your vowel suffix. But if you have a vowel in front of your Y, you do not do that. Now, if you have a vowel in front of your Y, then you have a vowel team. And you don't change your vowel team. So let's say pay. If you're going to add your suffix ing, which puts you in the progressive tense, right here, you're not changing any letters because oftentimes you change the Y. We don't change this vowel. Do you see that, Paul? When you're adding on your suffix, you don't change it. Okay, so now let's say we want to do the past tense ed. This says paying, this says raid. So when you see an AY in the middle of a word like this, then you know you have a suffix added onto it. Yay, day, and oftentimes they don't need suffixes. We don't put day-ing. Now, but you would put daily. But then you only change the Y to I when you're adding on a vowel suffix. And you guys are gonna have to forgive me. I'm doing so many projects with my hands. It actually cut my thumb. That my hands aren't working quite right. So I'm not writing the best today. There are always exceptions to the rule, but that is the rule, okay? Hey, how about gray? How about grayer? Grade, we can do ED. See, we're not changing this AY. See how it's in the middle of a word? Or we could do graying. See how you can do different. Now your suffixes, they change the word a little bit and they move around in your sentences. Or they change it up a little bit, depending on what tense you're going to be in. So, see how it's in the middle of a word right here. This AY says A. A. That's how you would say that. A. You would say A. So your mouth just opens wide. A. And you let out the long A sound. Now, the long sounds are actually pretty easy to remember because it's the name of the letter. This is the letter A. And that's the actual sound of that letter. So A, E, I, O, and U, those are the name of the letters, and that is the actual sound of the letter, and that is called the long sound. So those are, so it can be a little bit tricky. Let's say play, playing, playing, played. Okay, see, look, you have these in the middle of the word. That means you have a vowel team. That means you have a base word. What's your base word?
Play.
Play is your base word. Okay. Pray, praying, prayed. Okay, so we have prayed, praying. Look, you have a base word there. What's your base word?
Pray.
Pray is your base word. Sway, swaying, swayed. You can do an ED there. So when you're adding on these vowel suffixes, because this is a vowel team, then you're just adding it on. You're not changing this vowel team. Fray, fraying. The quilt is fraying. Okay? Decay, decaying. Now look at this, mayor. See how may means greater or superior. This is Old French. So you are going to see, so you'll see some words like this that will be in the middle, and that's how you would spell it. We don't say may for mayor. You would never understand because may, it's a helping verb. And it's also the month of May, so it could be a different thing. It comes from the Old French, and so that's where you get this AY in there, because this means greater, superior. But see, look, hey, hair, it means ER can mean 3 different things, and one of those things means a person who hays. A sayer is somebody who says something, okay? Now, the AYE, this is unusual. Very seldom do you see a word like this. But this says I. I means you're agreeing with somebody. I. And we don't really use this word all of the time unless you are in a certain profession or in a certain area that you live. You might use that. Who's all here? I. You know, if you're calling the roll in school or something like that, you would, Lisa's here, and so that would be something like this, but this is very unusual. But I just put it in there so that you actually know that it can happen. Now let's read this. AY comes at the end of words. Remember that. AY comes at the end of words. If AY is in the middle of a word, it has a suffix added onto the word. So remember that. If you see it in the middle of a word, you know that you have a suffix added onto a base word. So you just remember, AY is at the end of words. AY, they are at the end of your base words. Remember that. AY is at the end of the base word. Now, we have base words. We also have Latin roots. Around between 40–50% of the English language is based out of Latin roots. So we have them on Latin roots, but a lot of them are just our English language words. So AY says A, and they are stuck on a base word. Now let's look at the long A sound with the EAs. Now remember, EA can say E, which is the one that you would expect it to say most of the time. It says and it also says A, but that's the least amount of times. But you need to know that it does do that. And this vowel team, EA, it needs to be studied. You can't just look at that and say, oh, that's going to say A. Like AY, you know it's going to say A. AI, you know it's going to say A. But EA, you're going to have to really study the words to know how to actually read that word. Now look, this says A. In the dictionary, that is spelled correctly, but I'm not sure in other English-speaking areas which one they actually use, but if you're in America, you spell yay. This is the best way to spell it. People know what you're talking about. So AY says A, that's the best way. But also, you're going to have, if you're going to look at it, you're not going to have EA say A at the end of a word because it's going to break apart. Remember what we talked about. It turns to schwa. So if you see EA at the end, most likely it's going to say E. So don't guess at it because, see, this word says C, and then we have a homophone that says C. So we have to have different vowel teams to make up different words. Even though they sound exactly the same, they are spelt different and they have different meanings. This means you can see, I can see you, I can see, and this one is like the Mediterranean Sea, right? And we also have T. So you need to be really careful. The reason why we have these different ways of spelling is because we have different words that say, and they sound the exact same way, but they mean something totally different. And P, okay? So CTP. So if you have EA like this at the end of a word, it's most likely going to say E. This is very unusual. This does not follow the spelling rule. Look, you have EA at the end. What does A say almost always at the end of a word?
A.
Yeah, almost always A at the end of a word is going to turn to the schwa sound, which is the short U sound. It says So, but once in a while you're going to have an EA, which is very unusual. But guess what happens? Look, it's at the end of the word and it's not going to say sub-ID. Air E. It doesn't say the long E sound. Look what it does. It splits right down here. It says sub-I-D. This one says air E. So that is unusual to spell E like that. So once in a while you're going to get EA that says E. It breaks right here. You have 1, 2, 3 syllables. 1, 2, 3 syllables. In this word it's 4, but if you want to do idea, it's going to break here. idea. So that was a great idea. Do you hear that? And it breaks. That is unusual. This is how you would hear almost always. This is the rule. If you hear you spell it with an I and an A. That's the rule. This is not the rule. This is something you have to study and memorize. In, D, 3 syllables. In, D, So this is unusual to say See how it breaks right here. But that's going to get you confused. Well, the EA's at the end, should it say E? You know it's not going to say the long A sound because that's how you say the long A sound at the end of a word. So now here's another thing. So see how EA says A. This says greater, or you could say great. See, it says A. But this is also really tricky. The EA can be very confusing. This looks like it says theater. This is not the correct way how to say that. This is, it breaks right here down the middle and you say the. See, it's a long E sound. It's open. It's the open syllable, so it's going to say the long E sound and it's saying theater. Now, depending on where you live, this can say theater or it can say theater. Different people say it different ways. I think it could be theater, just depending on where you're at. Could be pronounced, this could be pronounced with a schwa, or it could be pronounced as the long A sound. So it actually breaks there, here, and here. And this is spelled a little bit different. This is actually a word that probably should be a spelling word. Now this is a fun word we have. You could look at this and say, well, if I'm just learning English, you could say, well, the EA says 3 different sounds. It says E and A. So creator, well, that doesn't sound right. Creter still doesn't sound right. How about crater? That is right. That sounds like that is a word. That is a word. But make sure you're getting the correct word because that's a different spelling. That is a word. So make sure you're getting the correct word. Now this word actually breaks right down the middle. This is not a vowel team. This is not a vowel team. This is a long E and this is a long A sound. See, it's open. This is the accented syllable in here. So we have creator, like God is our creator. We have YouTube channels that have creators, the creator of a YouTube channel, what Paul was just saying. So make sure that you are understanding that those EAs can break apart and don't let them confuse you. Now, this word right here, EAU, if you see EAU at the end of a word like this, then you know that this is going to be French and it says O. So this word says chateau. It breaks right here. And this tells you that this word is French. This tells you that this word is a French word. So if you see EAU at the end of a word, you're knowing that that needs to say sh. Does that make sense, Paul? And so how do you read that word, Paul?
Chateau.
Chateau. Okay. I love to watch those YouTube videos when they're renovating these absolutely beautiful chateaus. When you see EA, most likely there's going to probably be another word that is going to be a silent E syllable they're homophones. These are homophones. They sound the same, but they are spelt different. Remember, a homophone, they sound the same, but they are spelled different. So now steak means a piece of meat. Like we have elk steak now. It's a piece of meat that we can cut up and eat. And then steak. This steak has so many different meanings. You can pound the steak into the ground, steak conference. There's just so many different meanings for this steak. But you need to remember, if it's going to be the long A sound, you need to be careful that you're not spelling it with a silent E if you're meaning this steak. So you need to study both of these. This says steak and this says steak. But oftentimes, if this is a steak right here, you're going to probably have a silent E syllable also that says steak with a different meaning. So be careful with your words. We have swear. Now, E-A-R, it says air. And oftentimes when people teach that, they teach E-A-R as air, but it could also say ear, right? E-A-R can also say ear. So you need to be careful with that. But it says a-er, 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 air. That's how when you're trying to get the A and the R together, it's going to say air. Air. So R's are a little bit trickier. Now, this swear does not have a silent E syllable with it. So this doesn't exist. See, this is one of those words that doesn't exist. This swear they are irregulars, and you have a silent E in your irregular, but it's not saying air, it's saying swore. And this is your simple past, and sworn is your past participle. Okay, that's going to put you in the perfect tense. This is going to put you in the simple tense, and this will put you in the present tense. Okay, so swear is a tricky word. Now look at pair. E-A-R, pair. This is what this pair is. It's what I've been processing. Pair, and then look, we have pair with the AI, with this AI. Now, AI, you don't have any confusion. You're going to find A in AI. There's no confusion if that's going to say A. You're going to find that in the middle of the word. AI does not fall at the end of the words. In the English language, we do not have I's at the end of words. Now, we have borrowed words like spaghetti and rigatoni. Those are Italian words borrowed and put into the English language. But as a rule, I's do not. So we know that this vowel team is only going to be in the middle, and it's going to say air. You're not going to have to guess with this one. You're not going to have to say, is that ear, or is it air, or is it air? You're just not going to guess it. That pair. So this pair is like a pair of glasses. Or this pair means cutting, like a paring knife. And this right here is, when you have this accent right here on top of the E, it's forcing that E to say A. And this says pair. So that's saying A. And this is French. But we don't use this word in English very often, but that doesn't mean you're not going to come across it. Okay? Now look, it's where. E-A-R says a-er, where, and where. Homophones. This is a very much confusable. This means wear your clothes and where are you? Tear and tear. This could also say tear. So tear, like I tore my clothes, and tear. So be careful, these go into silent E's. Now, break and break, two different words. Okay, you broke your leg, put on the brakes. Great and great, you are a great person, grate the cheese. Let's say you're trying to spell the word break, and you're going, could it be a silent E syllable? Well, yeah, because it has one consonant. You need to remember that silent E syllables, only one consonant in there. So you know that here, if you hear like great, and you hear a consonant, let's break this apart. G, a, t. You can hear three sounds. Well, is that with a vowel team, or is that with a silent E? It could be either. So make sure you're looking that up. But look right here. Look with A. Paint. P. A. N. T. P. A. N. T. Do you see how right here, there is no way that could be a silent E syllable because there's two consonants. You cannot have an E at the end like that. There are some words that have E's at the end like that, but that's few and far between. So you know that it's either going to be a solid vowel team and you're not going to have to mess with the silent E and wondering if you're going to have a silent E issue. Okay, so English, if it's not your first language, A's, the long A sound can be very tricky because there's so many different ways to actually say that long A sound. So this is a long A, silent E syllable, long A, vowel team with an EA, long A, vowel team with an AI. And then this would be your long A if it's sitting in the accented syllable and it's open. This would be an open syllable. And then it would say the long A sound. But the long A sound, when it's open like that, it has to be in the accented syllable. If it's not in the accented syllable, it's going to say the schwa sound. That's why this is so confusing. So, but that's another way to say bay. Let's move into the OY sound. Oi, boy. Now, OYs, remember, they belong at the end of a word. If you see OY in the middle of a word, it has a suffix added onto it, almost always. There are some exceptions. I have an example up here, but almost always you have a suffix. Look, boy, boys, boyfriend, or you can have compound words. See, boy and friend, if you have a compound word, you're going to spell it exactly how you would spell it if it was by itself. Boyless, boyless. Okay, so see how we have suffix. OY says oi, oi, oi. Boy, boys, boyfriend, boyless. Means without boys. Okay, so now look, joy. There is your base word. Look, I'm going to put all the base words over here. There's your base word, joy, over joying. You see, it has a suffix. Joyed, joying. See? It's in the middle, but you're not changing the Y. So when we add on our vowel suffix, we do not change the Y if there is a vowel in front of the Y. We change the Y to I if there is no vowel in front of it. Look, like let's look at the word funny. Can you see that, Paul? Mm-hmm. Let's say we're going to add on the vowel suffix funniest. Because, look, EST. Because this is not a vowel, and because it's a consonant, and this is a vowel, you're going to change this Y to I and add EST, and you're going to get the funniest person. Paul is the funniest person. But you don't do that with vowel teams. If there's a vowel right here attached to a Y, you have a vowel team. And you're not changing that Y when you're adding on these suffixes. Joying, joyful. Look, it's in the middle. That means you have a base word. Joyance, base word. Joyless, base word. Joyrider, look, this is a compound word. It's in the middle of a word, but it's still at the very end of its base word. Okay? Enjoy, enjoys. See? Enjoyed, enjoying, enjoyable. It's in the middle of a word, but because it's at the end of its base word, you are not changing that Y. It's going to be in the middle. Okay, decoy. Oi, see, base word, decoys, decoyed, decoying, decoyer. Okay, Richard uses decoys when he goes duck hunting. Annoy, see the OY, see how this is a base word. Annoys, see now it's in the middle of a word, but this is a suffix. Annoys, annoyed, this is your suffix. Paul, do we change that Y to an I? No, why?
Vowel team.
It's a vowel team. We don't change our vowel teams. If there is a vowel in front of that Y, you know you have a vowel team. Okay? Annoying. Look, it's in the middle of a word, but this is a suffix. Annoyer. This is in the middle of a word, but this is a suffix. Annoyance. This is a suffix. Okay? So make sure you're understanding that you have a base word. You need to study your base words. In English, make sure you are studying your base words, and then you are adding on your prefixes and your suffixes. Now remember, your prefixes can change the word drastically, but your suffixes, your word is very similar, but it kind of changes where they sit in a sentence. It will change things maybe from nouns to verbs or adverbs or, you know, whatever. It'll change what it is. Okay, so employ. See, the OY is at the end of a word. Employs. See, now it's in the middle of a word. Employed. In the middle of a word, employing, employer, and employee. So see how the OY, it still says OY, you're still spelling it with an OY because on the base word, it is ending in the OY. Now look, destroy, there's your base word. OY says OY. So you're going to spell it OY. You're not going to spell it OI. If you spell it OI, that can only be in the middle of words. Well, why isn't this spelt with an OI? Because we are not changing the Y to I, because right here is a vowel. We don't change the Y to an I when it ends in OY. When this is a vowel, you don't change it. So we don't change our vowel. We do not change our vowel teams. So this is truly in the middle of a word to make this sound. This one is at the end of a base word. Destroying. Look, there's your suffix. Destroyer. Here's your suffix. Here's your suffix. There's your suffix. There's your suffix. See how that works? Deploy. There's your base word. See how it ends in OY because this is a base word. Now you're adding on your suffix. Deploys, suffix. Deployed, suffix. Deploying, suffix. Deployer. That's your suffix. See? OY. Make sure you're spelling it. Now it's easier to read it because OY says OY. Doesn't say any other sound, but to spell it, make sure you understand what your base word is and then what the suffixes are doing. Okay? Now this is a tricky word, loyal. Now this is a word that we use all the time in the English language, and we don't use it as loy, but it's an old French word. It's expressing a commitment. It's legal. All right? I am loyal to Richard because he is legally my husband. Royal. This is something we use all the time when we're speaking in English, but Roy in French, in the French, old French, it means king. So the AL is a suffix. And so this right here, this is why this is confusing, and you would think that you would need to spell it R-O-I-A-L, but you're not, because this is the base word. This is the base word. Loy means legal, Roy means king. And that's the reason why. And that might help you spell this. If you can remember, these are old French words that are put into the English language because the French conquered the English, and so a lot of French words are in the English language, and these are two that really stuck. Then they used the suffix AL to mean something. AL means you're relating to. That's what AL means. It has actually different meanings, but you're relating it to a commitment. The AL is relating it to this commitment. I am loyal. You're loyal to the king, right? AL, when it's put on and equals a noun suffix, it means an action, a process. And so you are making this your king. You're royal to the king. It's an action. It's a process that you are to the king. Okay? So now this is one of those words, Paul, right here. That might be one of your spelling words, honey. Oyster. This you would think it would be O-I-S-T-E-R. That's how you would think you would spell this word. This is one of those weird words that there's no reason except it showed up in the English in the 14th century. It derives from the Latin area, and it's just spelled O-Y-S-T-E-R. But remember, most English words, if you can remember the base word, then it's going to be an O-Y if it ends with it. Okay, so now we are going to focus on the AI. AI says A, but because it's a long A sound, you're still going to have issues with silent E's and your homophones that have the same sound of word but different spelling. So you're going to still run into that with the AI. I do think it's a lot easier than the EA and AY. They're pretty easy because they are at the end of words. So we have air, air. So, and see how you were, and then you're going to have weird words like this. Sometimes, not all the time, but this says aid and this says aid. I'm going to give you aid, and then this is an actual person that is aiding you. Okay, aim, gain, g, a, n. See, there's only 3 sounds in there. G, a, n. But you're using the vowel team. If you want the long A sound, you have to use letters that make and force the long A sound. So because this has a consonant here and a consonant here, you have to have a vowel team or a silent E to make that long A sound. You can't just put an A in there, because if you just did like this, G-A-N, it would say gan, and this is a closed syllable that forces that A to say its short sound, and it's accented because it's only one syllable. So you can't do that. Consonant, consonant, that means you absolutely have to have some sort of a vowel team or a silent E to get that long A sound. Main, see the same thing here, paid. Oh, main, and then main. See how this has a silent E. So this is, my main job is teaching my children. And then this is a horse's mane. So you have paid, and look, mail, go get the mail. This came in the mail, and Mel is Paul is a male. He's a boy. Hair, hair, and hare is a rabbit. So see how you're going to have issues with the long A sound. With the AI, you're still going to have issues with the silent E or even the vowel team EA. But I mostly I didn't want to confuse you too much. So I'm just showing you that you will have confusion with that long A sound. And so you just need to study the AIs. What words are they? What's the definitions? Pain and pain. So this is, I'm in pain. Ouch. That hurts so bad. Like I cut my thumb and it hurt. And then this is a window pane. Maid and maid. This is somebody that comes and helps you clean your home. This is, I made this video for you. Bail.
Hey Mom,
yeah.
Are you sure that's made? That looks like mode.
I know. My hands aren't working right. There we go. Yeah, that's a little bit better. That's an A. Bail, bail, hail and hail. See, you're going to have that same issue. Wait and wait. Vain and vain. There's another vein, but I didn't put them all in here. I just wanted to show you that you are going to have issues with the long A sound. It's very, very tricky. pale and pale, tail and tail, sail and sail, rain and rain.
Isn't one of them like raining over a city?
Yeah, this is rain. Raindrops keep falling on my head. And this is, the king is going to reign. All right? Bait and bait. And we already went over these. Pair, pair, and pair. See, now I've switched it up. A pair of glasses, because I'm focusing on the AI. And
A pair, like a
paring knife. This isn't a paring knife. It means to cut. And then we have our pair, see? But you need to remember that AI says A. And AI cannot be at the end of words. They can only be in the middle of words. Okay? Because I's are not allowed at the end of English language. We have jail, rail, rail. So just blend your words together, blend them together. Rail, rail. Whale and whale. So this means crying, and this means the big whale in the ocean. Wane and wane. Chain and claim. So just make sure that that AI says A, always says A. It's going to say A. AI says A. AY says A, always. Okay? Plain. Plain. This is the field. And this is an airplane. Okay? You know, faith. Now, if you're going to have something like this, we talked about it in another video. I mean, we talked about it earlier. So look, 1, 2 consonants. That means this is not going to have issues with a silent E. Now, you might have issues with an EA or something, but you're not going to have issues with the silent E. If you're going to have 2 consonants, you know that that's going to be easier. You're not going to have, oh, see how this one only has 1 consonant. So it could have a silent E, and often they do. Paint, see, 2 consonants. You're not going to have issues with a silent E. You can't do this. Don't do that.
Paint.
The E's there for a reason. Okay? Faint. So there's 2 consonants, so you will not have a silent E syllable that's forcing that A to be long. Chair, brain, raise. See how you have 2 letters here. Now, I've gone over this in other videos, but I thought it would be good to also go over it. See how this says raise, the SE. Now, sometimes the SE says S, but if you have an S then an E, it most of the time will say Z. Now, if you have a C and an E, that's when you're going to have the S sound. So the rule is, if you hear S at the end of the word, if you don't know how to spell it with a CE. If you hear Z at the end of a word, most likely it's going to be an SE, not a Z. Sometimes it'll be a Z, but most of the time it'll be an SE, like praise. This forces it. So we can't spell raise like this, because that would mean it's more than one ray. But that's how we spell ray, and then we add on our plural S. An S at the end means it's plural. You are adding a suffix to your word. So if you want the S sound and it's not going to be plural, it's just part of the word, it needs to be either a CE, an SE, but most likely a CE, or it needs to be a double S. And double S's are only used when you have a consonant and then, well, it doesn't have to be a consonant, but 1 vowel and 2 S's. So it's in a 1-syllable word, and that's when you use the double S. SEs and CEs are a little bit trickier. with that. So SEs most of the time will say the Z sound. So that will help you pronounce a word better. Strain. Now, see how this is domain and domain, and you have the E on the end, and you are in my domain. You're in the king's domain.
Or you're in my area.
Yeah, exactly. So it means you're in the area, and this means a vineyard. So most likely you're going to be using this word. You will not use this word unless you live probably by a vineyard. OI, they are so easy. It's just like the OY. Well, and even the AY is pretty easy because they go at the end of words. And that's, if you want A at the end of the word, you know it's an AY. So OI in the middle of a word is easy because if you want the sound OI in the middle of a word or at the beginning of a word, you spell it OI. OI cannot be at the end of words. Why? You want it OI in the middle of a word. Why can't we spell OI at the end? It's because I's are not allowed at the end of English language. Say it again. I's are not allowed at the end of the English language. Okay? We said it earlier, there are some words that end in an I, but they are adopted into the English language, like spaghetti. Okay, so this is easy. It's so much easier than the A's because OI, that's how you spell it and that's how you say it. Okay? Now I'm going to go down here. The OI with an L is a little bit tricky. And it sounds like you're saying AL when you're saying ol. Oi, ol. And that sounds like it's doing the AL suffix. So this could be tricky when you're spelling it, but it just says oil, oi, ol, oi, ol. You're not having this suffix. This suffix says ol. It says the ol sound. So this can be a little bit tricky. So make sure that you're not getting it confused and adding on the suffix and you're doing OI. You're not going to do OIAL. Make sure you don't do that. Okay? So soil, oil, soil, boil, oil, foil, toil, coil, broil, spoil. So it can be a little bit trickier with the L. Now it's easy to say, but when you're spelling it, you could get confused. So see how easy this is. You do not have to worry about silent E's with this because you can't make a silent E syllable with this sound. Join, loin, coin, void, moist, poison. See how this one breaks right? Whoops, did it wrong. Poison, groin, poise. See how that S, you're here, Z. So most of the SEs say Z. There are many that say S. But if you are learning it, go with Z first with an SE, okay? Go with Z first with an SE. Now look, toilet. So this breaks right here. Toilet. Hoist. Choice. Oh, see here, look. You have a CE. See how SEs say Z? CEs always say S. Okay? But if you're wanting to spell the S sound at the end of most words and you want that sound, then you know it needs to be a CE. Unless you have one vowel and it ends in an S. See how this has more than one vowel? So you know that there's no way you can do this double S because it has more than one vowel. You have to do a CE. I would do a CE first if you're guessing how to spell. Noise, see? SE right there. Z, voice, see the CE, voice, and joist. Anoint, anoint, point, and appointment. We actually use appointment all of the time in the English language, all of the time. I have an appointment. I have a doctor's appointment. I have an appointment with my husband to run to do something. You know, so you have an appointment. You do that all the time. So, but these two words right here can be confusing. Look at these, Paul. What does this say?
Going.
Going and
doing.
So these aren't saying the oi sound. Why?
Because they're not vowel teams. The I is part of the ing.
Nice. So exactly, these are not vowel teams. Even though they look like they could be this vowel team, this goes to the word go. And this goes to the word do. And you're adding on. So if you have a word that ends in an O and you're adding on a suffix, that is an I. These are the few, really, there's not very many. And so these could be confusing. If you're first trying to learn the language, you're gonna say going, but it's going. So you want to break it. This is a long syllable. It's open. It's an open syllable. It's a long vowel that says it's long sound, and it's going. Now this says do, and this is an unusual word. It's actually not following the spelling rule. This is a word we use all of the time in our English language, and this actually, it's a helping verb. And so you just need to remember that it's ooh, it's saying the double O sound, ooh, or the long U sound. I would say the long U sound, really. And then you're just adding your ing. It's not doing. It's not doing. It's doing. Okay. All right, you guys, I hope this was super helpful. You are more powerful than you know. I know that you can do this. Get in and study it, and you can do it. I know you can. So good luck with everything, and we'll see you later in the next video. Bye, everybody. Take care of yourselves. What you doing?
Giving them a quick look of all of it.
Okay. Bye, everybody.